Welcome. You're listening to My Magical Horse, the podcast, where we are getting curious about animal communication. I am your host, Jordan Banks, and if you are desiring a more magical connection with your own horse, you are in the right place. Join us as we rediscover our sense of wonder, experience the joy, and feel the magic that horses can and do bring to our lives each and every day. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's get started. Welcome back to My Magical Horse, the podcast. Today, I'm doing a solo episode. I wanted to talk a little bit about who I am and how My Magical Horse came into existence. And I really actually was thinking a lot about what did I really want to share with you. And I decided I'm going to talk a little bit about the very first time that I connected with Ugo intentionally. So we'll get to that here in a few minutes, but I just wanted to start with who am I? Who am I? Jordan Banks, creator of My Magical Horse. I am a lifelong horse lover. I wanted a horse since before I could even speak. I remember getting on, I don't know, maybe I remember it from photos, but my mom put me on a pony when I was 1 and I had, the little hobby horse and all the things. And I just remember reading every single book there was in the library that had to do about horses. You might be that same girl too. Until actually there wasn't any more books that I hadn't read. And I would pray every night for a horse. Actually, my mom told me a story. She told me, it was actually kind of a funny story. She told me a story about a woman who wanted a husband. And so she was told, or I don't know if she was told, but she decided to pray for a husband every night. And she put out like a pair of jeans or something and prayed for God to fill them with a man. And so my mom told me that I should maybe hang like a bridle on my bedpost or somewhere in my room and pray for God to fill that bridle with a horse or a pony. And when I was, I guess, 9 years old, our neighbor had this little Shetland pony. Her name was Beauty, and their kids had outgrown her. And they had basically asked if I would be willing to take care of her. So she was not mine. I was just taking care of her. And I think my parents were just testing out whether or not I was committed to caring for this animal. And I was out there all the time with her. I was singing her Little Orphan Annie songs, and I just spent all my time with that little pony. And on my 10th birthday, I was told she was mine. So that was one of the best, such an incredible experience for a 10-year-old girl to find out that this little pony that she had fallen in love with was hers and she got to keep her. So I then got into horse 4-H, and mind you, my little pony, she was 10 hands tall, little Shetland pony. And I was tall for my age. So I was 10, but I was a tall 10-year-old girl. And I would ride that pony around bareback everywhere. My feet were, I don't know, maybe not even a foot from the ground. And I didn't have a saddle for her, so I just rode her around bareback. So when I got into 4-H, I found out that I wasn't going to be able to take her to a horse show to ride her because I was too tall. So I actually got to go to a clinic to learn how to teach her how to drive, because the advice I was given at 4-H was, hey, I could teach her how to pull a pony cart. So I remember going to this clinic, and it was with this woman from England. Her name was Doris Ganton, and she was kind of the guru on learning how to train horses to drive. And interestingly, I mean, full circle now, I know the facility that I went to do that when I was 10 became Paddock Wood Farm, which I was the trainer at for 7 years up until COVID hit. So it was a full circle moment, but I was this 10-year-old girl in this clinic learning how to train We had two Arabian horses that we were going through all the steps to learn how to drive. And then I was the only kid in the clinic that as a participant. And then went home and with the help of my mom, we trained my little pony Beauty how to drive. Won't mention the time that whoops, I didn't gauge my steering right and I think we pulled the pony cart down the side of a car that was parked near our driveway. That was fun. Luckily, it was an old car, so I don't think I got in trouble for it. But anyway, that was the start of an incredible journey that has become my lifelong passion. Obviously, I knew at an early age that horses were going to be a significant part of my life. About a year in, after doing the pony cart for a year, and I showed my pony in 4-H that year and learned a lot of things. At age 11, I got my first big horse. He was actually 15.1 hand Anglo-Arab, named Willie. So Anglo-Arab means he was half Arabian, half thoroughbred. And he was a lot of horse for an 11-year-old girl who didn't really know what she was doing. But you know what? He was $600 and he was pretty. And my 4-H leader's daughter went with, oh, she didn't go with us actually to buy the horse, but after we got him, she said she would come and give me some lessons. We were going to ride to the local lake lot, public access of the lake, because there was a large parking area there that I could ride my horse for my first lesson. And so my mom and my 4-H leader's daughter, they went in the car and I was going to ride my horse there to meet them. This is my first ride on him. And I remember I got about a quarter mile from home, and my horse, he decided he wasn't going to go. He didn't want to go there. So he actually did a 180 with me and took off galloping as fast as he could go. And mind you, we did not wear helmets back then. I was in a Western saddle, but I didn't know. I mean, I was just a kid. I was 11 years old, and my new horse, my pride and joy, was galloping me home as fast as he could go down the center of the road. Like, luckily, we did not have a lot of traffic where we lived. And as we got closer to home, there was a hairpin turn. I mean, literally a hairpin turn that kind of went this way and then it went up. And he took that turn, and I remember it as clear as day. Sparks were flying from his shoes, and the fact that we didn't crash or cream out there is like a freaking miracle. God was looking out for me. And we continued to gallop up the hill. And as we were approaching, we lived at a dead end. And as we were approaching the dead end, my little 11-year-old brain started thinking, oh my gosh, did I put the hot wire up? I think I might have put the hot wire up and he's gonna run me through the hot wire because at the end of the driveway was the path that went up onto the hillside where we kept him. And I at 11 had the mind to, without having ever been taught anything, I just, I don't know, maybe God was looking out for me. And we had two driveways, and when I approached the first driveway, I just reached down and grabbed my left rein and pulled it around hard, and it made him turn into our lower driveway because I was petrified we were going to run through the hot wire. And he turned, and then my dad's truck was parked there. His older truck was parked there, and so my horse came to an abrupt halt, and I fell forward, hit my stomach on the saddle horn. I jumped off, and I just remember as an 11-year-old, I'm thinking, bad horse, and I just started hitting his neck, going, "Oh my God, why would you do that to me?" And I didn't cry. I think I was just like on adrenaline, like, holy shit, what just happened? And eventually my mom and the 4-H leader's daughter returned back home because I never did show up at the at the public access of the lake to do my lesson. And so I told them what had happened, and as would be the advice per the day, we were instructed to go buy him a bigger bit, which, you know, at the time, it did save my ass, and I did not have, we didn't have all the knowledge, I guess, that we have today. So that was the start. He got this humongous slicer bit with a huge port, and that is how I controlled him. And I'd learned some techniques and tools of what to do if he tried it again, and he did try it again. But I was a determined young girl who was determined to ride this new horse that I got, and she, meaning me, she wasn't gonna take no for an answer when he didn't want to take the bridle. I just was patient and I waited him out. And again, I was tall, but I remember waiting, I don't even know, as a kid, maybe an hour to get him to lower his head enough for me to put the bridle on him. That was my start. That was my introduction to horses. And I have never given it up. I have been a lifelong student of the horse, a lifelong student of those who I would seek out as experts in their field. I was always looking for who, in my knowledge and my opinion, was really good at what they do, and I would seek them out and become their student. So let's see, I started riding, I guess, when I was 9. And now I'm 52. So it's been a journey. My horses are my life. They're everything to me. It's so beyond riding them. Of course, that's how it always starts out, I think, in our young life as we want to learn to ride, and I did. But now it has turned into so much more, and I have branched out into this venture called My Magical Horse, where I really my mission is to educate people about what animal communication is, because as a young child, I actually thought I could communicate with animals, but somewhere along the way, I lost that belief. And then I found it again. And it is actually one of the most amazing things when you come to the realization that we actually can communicate with these animals, and there's such deep wisdom to be shared from these animals if we are open to it. It's a whole new world, and I am inviting you into it. I I just want to be a resource. I want to be a resource for people where they can come. I'm interviewing animal communicators. I'm interviewing other trainers and other professionals who believe in animal communication, and getting some insights into actual stories of how animal communication has either led them to what they're doing today or how it has assisted them somewhere along the line. And there are some incredible and amazing stories, and I'm just so excited to share. I've done 7 episodes prior to this one so far, and each episode is packed with so much information. And being the perfectionist that I am, I I have listened to every episode that I've done probably at least 20 times. I know that sounds a little excessive, and I know it is excessive, but what I want to tell you is every single time I listen to an episode, that I was the person asking the questions, but every single time I listen to an episode, I glean yet another layer of wisdom and knowledge from whoever it was that I was interviewing that I didn't catch the first time or the first 15 times. And I think that's really a testament to we will we will hear what we're ready for. And sometimes I think you have to hear one layer and metabolize that and understand that before you're ready for the next layer. So my invitation to you is go back and listen to these episodes again and again if you feel called to, because you're going to get something different each time you listen to them. And there is so much wisdom already in the short time I've been doing this. There's so much wisdom to be shared. So please, I just invite you, please, if you're interested in learning more about how to have a magical connection with your horse, how you can communicate with your horse, even if you are not an animal communicator, please join us. I can't wait to have you along for the journey. A little bit more about my story. I guess it was in my 20s. I decided to I never imagined that first of all, I am a horse trainer and I teach lessons. Like, I'm a professional in the industry. I've been doing this for 25 years. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I would become a horse trainer. You're supposed to grow up and get a real job. But when I was in my 20s, I had the opportunity to go to Portugal, and I went there for, I can't remember how many days. It might have been like a 5-day trip. And I was rooming with this woman. I had not met her until I was there. She was from California. She was a dressage rider. I have never, I didn't even know what a Lusitano horse was when I went on this trip. Someone told me, oh, it's like an Andalusian. Oh, okay. I know what an Andalusian is, or I know what a Lipizzan is. Okay. What's a Lusitano? So I did some research and I educated myself about what a Lusitano is, and went to Portugal. It was a life-changing, truly a life-changing experience for me as a 20 something year old. I was actually living overseas at the time. I lived in Germany. My ex-husband, who I was married to then, he was in the army. Yes, so I had this opportunity to go solo to Portugal, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. While I was there, and my business is called Golden Horse Dressage, first of all. My magical horse offshoot of that, for this new podcast and venture into animal communication, all things animal communication. But Golden Horse Dressage, actually, really, the idea of it was first planted when I was in Portugal and I was riding this Golden Palomino Lusitano stallion. And I remember going back to my room that night and telling my roommate, oh my God, I want to do this forever. I want to do this forever, I told her. And not thinking that really I could. I mean, you have to do a real job, not be a horse trainer. Like, what's that? But I remember my roommate, she looked at me and she said, then why don't you? And it was the first time anybody ever actually gave me permission to truly follow my dreams, or at least that's how I processed it at the time. She said, why don't you? And it was just the first of many steps that kind of started getting the wheels turning in my head that, yeah, why don't I? Like, what is stopping me from doing this? I guess now in retrospect, that was my first experience with a limiting belief. I did not think that was something that was possible for me. But after that trip, I went back to Germany, and then shortly after that, we moved back to the United States. We were in Virginia for, I think, like 10 months. And I started taking some lessons while I was in Virginia. I started taking some dressage lessons, and I started taking some jumping lessons, and I had never taken dressage or jumping lessons before. When I was in Germany, I continued riding. As a youth, I was riding pleasure horses, and I was doing stock seat equitation and saddle seat equitation and driving and bareback equitation, all those kind of things as a kid. In college, I actually did learn how to play polo briefly. That was, I think I did a semester or two of that. It was just introduction to what polo is. But then in Germany, I was an American over in Germany. I, of course, found a barn I needed to ride. I actually did do some jumping there when I first got there, but they didn't realize I didn't have any jumping experience at all. And I remember them putting me on this horse that was a jumper. She was a Polish warm blood mare, and going, oh yeah, yeah, you can ride in this clinic. And I didn't tell them I'd never jumped before. And I remember the first time I went through the jump thing, it went really well because I had no expectation. I didn't know what to do. And we jumped everything. And these weren't little jumps, these were big jumps. And I did not know what I was doing. The second time through was not the same story because now I knew what to expect, and now my instincts started to take over in all the wrong ways. And it really just went to hell, to be honest. Yeah, so then I think I stopped at that point and I was like, yeah, I don't think I should be doing this. But anyway, kind of a funny testament that the first time through was really what was really good. But while I was there, I did lease this Polish warm blood mare for a short time until I met this businessman, this German businessman. He actually owned a tack store in the town where I lived. And he was into Germans really at the time when I was there, they were really into quarter horses and the Western world. And I think at the time, I don't know if it's still that way, but the German horse people that I was meeting were enthralled with this whole Western thing. And I grew up riding Western. So ultimately it turned into I started riding this guy's Western quarter horses that he had imported from the States, and then I didn't have to pay to lease a horse like I was doing, and I just started riding for him, and we did like a mutual trade. So anyway, I had a lot of great memories. I learned German basically not fluent, but I learned the things I needed to learn to communicate at the barn. Anyway, as a young woman living in Germany, and then I had the opportunity to go to Portugal. That was my first introduction to dressage was in Portugal, riding these Lusitano stallions, and then I was hooked. So I went back to the States, started taking some dressage lessons, started taking some jumping lessons. That was my first 10 months. Then I moved back to Washington, which is where I'm from, Washington State, and started looking into being a working student. So my first gig as a working student was like the first one was 6 months. That's right. And then the first one was 6 months, and then that one kind of didn't. Long story, but it didn't go the way I wanted it to. So I quit there. Looked for wasn't really honestly wasn't looking for another opportunity because I had not been treated well in that working student situation, and I didn't think that that was something I wanted to do again. I went to Michigan to I didn't want to be a working student, but I had met earlier when I lived in Virginia. I had met someone at Equine Affair, and they had introduced me to the people that had Shinebit Farm, and I was invited to go to Shinebit Farm and work as a working student. Which after my 6 month stint, I wasn't really too into it, but when they offered me to come, I talked myself into going. Also, I worked my ass off and I was there for like 10 days. It was a short-term thing while their other person was on a vacation or something. But I learned a lot. And if anything, I've learned how much fortitude and perseverance that I had for the doing the things that I love. Later on, I had an opportunity to be a working student for a rider from the Portuguese School of Equestrian Art, and I did that at Carpe Diem Farm, many of you may know. And I did that for a year, and that was an amazing experience. My first really good experience being a working student. Was treated really well, and I learned so much during that time. And then that opportunity was going to end because he was going back to Portugal, and I became a working student for Gwen Blake for 2 years. And that was also a very amazing experience. I had a lot of opportunity to ride upper level horses, gain a lot of experience that I probably otherwise would not have gotten. Anyway, all of this to say that that's kind of what led up to eventually becoming a horse trainer on my own. I had gone to California for a little while, came back, started my own business, and really teaching lessons and teaching a lot of kids. And there's one thing about teaching is that it really actually helps solidify what you know, and it helps teach you too when you're teaching someone how to do something and you're trying to figure out how to explain to them how to do something. You have to really know what you're talking about. So I taught kids for a really long time. That's how I built my business. And eventually it grew, and I had adults and kids and everything. And I'm still teaching and training horses, although that I'm not doing it with the same rigor that I was doing prior to COVID when I was doing competitions and things. My focus has really shifted, and now I am really, really tuning into the essence of the horse and what the horses are saying to us, and have finally come to terms with the fact that animal communication is real. I wanted to believe it, but was in denial about it for a really long time. Actually, I surprised myself at for how long I allowed myself to deny that it was real. But now I have fully embraced it, and I do talk about my journey into embracing animal communication with Felicity Davies, episode 161 on the Equestrian Perspective podcast back in the end of August 2024. Felicity interviewed me. So if you want to hear more about my story and how I got to be where I am, check her podcast out. The other thing I guess I want to talk about is how my magical horse came to be. It it's layers deep. It's really layers deep. I One thing that I'm moving into at this stage of my life is true authenticity. I want to be around authentic people. I want to be with people who speak the truth and who are kind, but who speak the truth, and who operate on a frequency of authenticity in all things that they do. And on that note, I, let's see, it hasn't been quite 2 years yet. In June, in June, it'll be 2 years that I went to a life-changing event. It was very interesting as far as learning how to connect with your own intuition. I was riding a horse. I had seen the ads for this thing. They were calling it the Elements of Connection, and one of my friends, Celeste, was going to be one of the presenters at it. And I'd seen the ads and I'd seen, the promotions for it on Facebook. And I really hadn't given it a lot of thought because it was expensive to go with your horse. But I hadn't even thought about the fact that you could go as an auditor. And I remember it was the night before you had to apply to go, like auditors had to apply to go. And I saw an ad come across my Facebook feed, and I was riding a horse, and I literally was thinking about it, and I just got chills, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think I have to go to this. And at the time they didn't really know what exactly it was going to be. They had talked about it having an element of helping horses and humans heal from trauma. And I decided to submit my application and hoped that they accepted me and that I was going to go. I had undergone some trauma in my life, and trauma that I had not spoken about to really anyone. I had told maybe two people. It was just something that I was just keeping inside of me for a really long time. So I guess it piqued my interest. Trauma. What is this about? Trauma with horses. I had certainly gotten horses in training that I had known had experienced trauma. And also I just had a real calling to be able to help those horses, and I didn't understand why. Those horses were, it's almost like magnetically drawn into my life. I got a lot of problem horses that other people just didn't have the patience for, didn't have the time for, or didn't believe in. And I was always really successful with those horses. So it was kind of a thing that had me going, why do I keep getting these kind of horses in my life? But it does make sense now. Anyway, I went to this event called the Elements of Connection, and like I said, it was the beginning of June 2023. Elements of Connection. And the very first day, the very first meditation, we went around, there was like 20 some of us in this circle, and I don't even remember what they asked, but I remember for the first time ever sharing this deep, dark trauma that I had shoved, buried deep inside of me, sharing it for the first time with a group of women who I didn't know, but for some reason I felt like it was safe and it was time for me to share this part of my story. Uh, Doing that and bringing light to that experience was a life-changing event in and of itself. I think I knew going into it that I was ready. I was ready to share it. I didn't really know what that was going to look like. But without going into all the details on this podcast, that event and me opening up to that group of women and then subsequently deep diving with some of the other facilitators of that experience has been one of the most healing journeys I've ever been on. It is the healing journey of my life. The catalyst was Elements of Connection. So I spent a lot of time after that actually working very closely with Amber Leidick and Shaylee Evans in the programs that they were offering, learning so much about myself, my nervous system, what shadow work was, what somatic breath work was, what theta healing was, what are all these things? I don't know. I was ready to dive in because I was ready. I was ready to get past this trauma that had, even though I had buried it and was pretending it hadn't happened for so many years of my life, I knew it was affecting me and I was ready to move past it. So here we are. As part of this last almost 2 years now of my healing journey, my horses have stepped forward and become a huge part of this process for me. And that is thanks to animal communication and animal communicators like Shaylee Evans, who are doing the work themselves. And it's not just a superficial, oh, your horse doesn't like the saddle and, you know, doesn't like it when you do XYZ. I mean, it's so much deeper than that. And I think there is that too. There is that aspect of animal communication, and there is that desire to help them on that level. But a lot of times, what I'm learning is that things that are manifesting in our horses' lives are oftentimes because of things that we are dealing with that we are not acknowledging about ourselves, or we haven't, maybe we just aren't even not aware of something that we're dealing with, or we are not willing to see it yet, perhaps. And maybe our horse is inviting us to take a look inside and look a little deeper. I feel very blessed that since I've stepped into this journey, I have had a beautiful, beautiful stream of healers that have been coming into my life to help me navigate this and help me work with my horses and help me look at the deeper things within myself, and how the trauma has affected me and ways that I can heal from it, and other patterns. There's so many things when we start to look at ourselves. So I'm just throwing this in here to encourage anybody that is, if you have any hint of an inkling that maybe you need to look into your inner landscape, so to speak, of what's going on inside of you, and your own need for healing, or your own journey. I mean, there's all sorts of different kind of things that we need to heal from, and there's all different kinds of traumas that we may have endured up to in this point in our lives. So don't be afraid. As my message is, don't be afraid to go there, and know that while the work is deep and the work is sometimes painful, um, it is so worth it when you get out on the other side. And I feel like it's taken me nearly this 2 years to kind of navigate and get through to the other side. So kind of went off on a huge tangent there, a little more than I was planning to. Um, what else do I want to tell you? I guess I want to dive in now. I will dive into the elements of connection. And like I said, if you listen to Felicity's podcast, I talk about my experiences up until that point of my life where I felt like I was experiencing animal communication, but I was still not really truly embracing it. Like, I still wasn't sure if it was real. When I went to Elements of Connection, one of the coolest things about that experience was that Shaylee Evans was the animal communicator that they had included in their facilitators of this experience. And she was so magical in that I had always known that, like, a communicator would, use a photo to connect with your horse, but she had this way that she was able to connect with people's horses without even seeing their picture. I mean, it was incredible. So she was talking to us auditors. She would be reaching out and sharing things that their horses wanted them to know. She was, as part of the clinic itself, giving messages to the other presenters, or the other presenters in the clinic, about what the horse was feeling in the moment. It was just one of the most amazing things I'd ever experienced, and I highly recommend if you have the opportunity to go, if they do another one in the future. I know they've done two so far. But on the third day of our experience at Elements of Connection, Shaylee invited us and led us really into a meditation to connect with our own horse. And up until this point, I mean, I had experiences where my horses had actually reached out to me, but again, they had reached out to me, and I had been the receiver of a message. I had never intentionally reached out to them. And there is a difference. So Shaylee, she led us through a meditation, and I highly recommend, if you want to learn how to do this, You can do her online class or sign up for one of her live classes or any of the communicators that I've interviewed so far. I'm not all of them teach, but some of them have offerings to teach how to do animal communication, and I will surely have many more animal communicators as guests on my podcast as it grows. So just, listen to the episodes, and if somebody in particular resonates with you, check them out and see if you can learn from them. So anyway, this was on June. So June 4th, I think, was the day that I actually did this connection, which was day 3 of Elements of Connection. And I have my journal right here. I bought this journal. It says the best is yet to come. And I had bought this journal actually when I got down to Aptos. I think I got it from a Rite Aid or something, but it was just perfect. So yeah, June 4th, we did this connection with our own horse, and I didn't know which one of my horses was going to come forward. But I actually was trying to read my handwriting and it was a little small. So I went ahead and transcribed this, and I'm going to read it to you, just to share what my first experience was like, connecting with one of my horses. I should say me intentionally reaching out to create the space. And I'm not going to talk about how to do that. You can learn that from one of the animal communicators yourself. But this was the conversation that came after we opened up the sacred space and set all of our intentions, for the information for the highest and best good to come through. The first thing that I saw when I opened up myself to connect with my horses was I saw my horse Ugo, my Lusitano gelding. I saw his muzzle coming through. And then I saw the image. So I did see the image of him resting his muzzle in my hands. And to be honest, I felt like I could actually feel his whiskers in my hands. And I felt like that was his way of letting me know this is real. I could feel him putting his whiskers in my hands. It was a beautiful feeling. As I'm going into this with a little uncertainty about if I could even do it, like, can I connect? Ugo's showing me, yes, you can. I think that Shaylee might have told us to see if they were receptive to the halter. He was receptive to his halter, and he showed me that he wanted to go with me. In the midst of this, I was seeing the color orange on his crest and yellow in his shoulders. Interesting now that I know more about the chakras, which I didn't really understand at the time. Orange is the sacral chakra and yellow is the solar plexus. So something for me to think more on there about what that meaning could be. And she had asked us to write a list of questions, prior to doing the meditation, of what we'd want to ask. And I think she gave us maybe some suggestions of what we could ask. The first question that I asked him was, I said, how do you perceive yourself? And and I'm trying to remember, in this particular case, I think I got the word fun. He said he was funny, and I got the feeling or the knowing that he thinks he's funny. And he is. He is very funny. And then that goes to the question, like, well, how do I know I'm not just making this up? Because I know my horse. Like, I think that's probably the hardest thing about connecting with your own horse, is you know so many things about them. So if you have a stranger, somebody who don't know or doesn't know your horses, connect with your horse, and they're able to bring forth messages that resonate with you, perhaps it just feels more real because you're thinking, well, how would they know that? In this case, it was setting the intention to trust whatever comes through. So he said he's funny. He's fun. I literally saw the word fun. He is fun. He's funny. I would call him the class clown. He's a comedian. His intention, in my opinion, just from knowing him as well as I do, is that he wants to bring joy to everybody in this world. I mean, that's part of why he's here, is he wants to make people laugh. He wants to make people have fun and enjoy themselves. To remember how to have joy, which is interesting because that is something Shaylee actually told me in a connection she did with him at a later date. There is a theme around joy with him, and fun. Fun is the word I got. I asked him, how do you feel about the tack and being ridden? And at the time I had been riding him in a bareback pad. And I was not putting a saddle on him. He is actually a horse who's cold-backed and has a long history of being a little goosey when you get on him. Celeste had come out and done body work on him at some point, and she had just recommended I try the bareback pad. And he said to me that he loves the bareback pad and he loves connection. And then at this time, I was seeing a blue and purple light all around us, like glowing around the outside of us, and a white light in our center, like he and I sharing our center, and it had this glowing white light. And then there was some orange, which again is sacral energy, around the edges of our physical, the image that I had in my mind of our physical self. And I asked him, can we join energies? And I heard him say, yes, please. I asked him if he could share the full body experience with me. Like how does this feel on to you? And I got the word ethereal. And then I could see wings, and I saw him like floating into the arena as if on a cloud. I asked, do I have permission to ride you? And he said yes. I asked if he had any lessons for me, and he said, just do it. Which is interesting because I do have a history and a theme of procrastinating and doubting myself, which I've done for many, many years. But he said, just do it. And then I asked him, I said, what would you like to do? What is important to you? Because for me, I always want to know what he wants, not just what I want. And his message to me was, just connecting and being together is special time. And then I got the words unity, love, respect, and compassion. I asked him, can I spend a moment just feeling into your body? Like, can I experience what you're experiencing in your body? And when I asked him that, I felt a subtle low pain in my back. It was like a twinge in the left part of my low back. And but then he quickly came in and said that he doesn't care about the pain in his body. He just wants us to be together. So that was an interesting message. He's like, let's focus less on the pain and let's just focus more on being together, which is also interesting as that has been a theme since then, about just being. It comes up frequently, as you'll see if you read the things I post on my magical horse, or other things I might share to come in future podcasts from other meditations that I've done connecting with him. I asked him, what do you want our life to be like together after this clinic? And what does that look like for us? And he said, never taking any day for granted and making the most of each day that we have together. I asked him if what his core lesson was for me. And he showed me the infinity symbol, which was just so touching to me. And it's interesting this, he showed me the infinity symbol, and I at the time didn't even realize that that would also become a theme in our communication together, which I'll expound on a little bit more in a minute. I asked what he needed me to know, and he simply said that you are loved. At that time, Shaylee was wrapping up the connection, and so I told him it was time to disconnect, and I asked if we could talk more later, and he said, I look forward to it. And then there was a lot of bright orange and red light in the background throughout this part of the connection. Part of the reason when I talked about the infinity symbol, part of the reason that today I'm choosing to do this episode as episode number 8 of My Magical Horse, the podcast, is because the number 8, when turned on its side, is the infinity symbol. So it felt significant to me to share this part of our story as episode 8 on this part of our journey. The other thing I wanted to say is that a year and a month after I had done Elements of Connection, and I'd been working really, really closely. Like I did all of their programs with Amber and Shaylee, as I mentioned. They decided to hold a retreat called Remember, and it was at the same location at Amber's place in Aptos, and it was in July of 2024, towards the end of July. And this was a much smaller group. I think there was 8 of us, I think counting Amber and Shaylee, I believe. And I just wanted to share that a year later, and now at this point, I'm getting much more experienced with doing these meditations, learning how to connect. I'd done a handful of different classes at this point of learning how to connect with horses. Still not, still feeling like I had my own blocks, and I don't know, feeling like I needed somebody to hold my hand through the process. But we did a connection or a meditation at the Remember retreat. And I just wanted to share this part of it because it again resonates back to the infinity symbol. In that connection or that meditation, I connected with Ugo again. And the meditation started with me seeing my spirit animal. I think at this point, Ugo had already gone to the ER. I thought I was going to lose him. And I just kept telling him the whole time that we were at the emergency clinic that if he made this through, this was going to be our Phoenix Rising rebirth. And I was going to make a point to spend more time with him because as a horse trainer, you know, it's the sad truth, but our horses always get put last. And I know they say as a horse trainer, you should always do your horses first in the day, but sometimes there's just simply is not enough time to get everything done. And a lot of times your horses still take the back seat, which had unfortunately become a theme in my life, just being in a survival mode for as long as I had been. And putting my horses last, I think also equated to me putting myself last. It was something that I've been learning on my healing journey as well. But in that meditation, my point being that the Phoenix was already in my mind, this Phoenix Rising rebirth that we were on. And in that meditation, I started to see my spirit animal as a phoenix, but it shapeshifted into a bald eagle, and then it shifted again into a hawk, before shifting back into a phoenix. And I saw it flying above me and guiding me to Ugo. And then I saw Ugo, and he had this huge heart, and the message around him was that he and I share the same pure heart. I saw him grow wings like a Pegasus, and his message to me again was about just being together always. And he said, always together for infinity is our promise to each other. And then he said to me, Namaste, and thank you for seeing who he is. He said, Namaste, and thank you for seeing who I am and letting me just be myself without the pressure to perform. He said that his purpose is so much deeper than that. And coming from a horse that was my competition horse, this means a lot, and I think this is important. One of my posts in my magical horse that you can check out on my Patreon page is about just being with your horse, and how many people feel like if they aren't riding their horse, they can't justify the expense of their horse. I don't say that exactly in the post, but you should check out the post about just be. Well, there's a couple posts about just being. But why do we have to be riding the horse to justify its expense? These are incredibly magical beings that we are so blessed to have in our lives, whether we ride them or not. And I think that if we open ourselves up to something beyond riding, and don't get me wrong, I love to ride just as much as anybody else, but some of the most profound meaningful experiences with my horses have been in the quiet times when I'm just sitting with them, quiet in their stall, and I'm choosing to just be with them. And I cannot put any price tag on how important or how meaningful or how valuable that time that I spend with them is. So it's just food for thought. Like, why do we have to ride them? I'm not saying that we can't ride them or that we shouldn't ride them. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying, do we have to ride them to justify owning them? I don't think so, but let yourself find your own answer to that. And then back to that meditation with him. I saw some beautiful imagery that I am going to turn into to one of my children's books. And I'm not going to share it here because then it won't be a surprise. But basically, his message to me was that his heart is as deep as the sea and as expansive as the sky. And as deep as the sea and as expansive as the sky, and that we are going to be together forever. Um, always together for infinity is our promise to each other. That's what he said. So I just wanted to share. It was such a special experience with him. These two meditations and many others that perhaps I'll share on a future episode of this podcast. I I was debating whether or not to share. There's another interesting thing that happened at that Remember retreat. And again, this was a very intimate group of us. And it was such a beautiful experience to be with these women and going through these deeply profound journeys with Amber. She does these amazing journeys, which for me now I've been able to open up and see some incredible imagery, which for anybody who can't see the imagery yet, you can't see it yet. I couldn't see it either in the beginning. And I found that very peculiar given that I am an artist. I am an actual artist. Like I draw portraits of horses and dogs as another business. My business is Golden Horse Studio, and I've been doing portraits for people, primarily horses and dogs, but I can do any animal. But as an artist, I found it very strange that when I first started to dive into this animal communication path and this journey, that I just felt like I was so blocked. And I think that's also what led me to understanding that I was going to need to start to unpack some of my trauma to unlock some of these blocks that I was finding that I was having. And I'm happy to say that now I see the imagery. I do these journeys and I can see the images and they're beautiful. But where was I going with that? Oh, I was okay. So I'm gonna grab the letter actually. As part of this, I guess this is appropriate to do on my very first solo podcast episode. This is deeply personal. I mean, there's nothing that I don't feel willing to share in this letter, but essentially, Amber guided us into this meditation that helped us to connect with our higher self. And I know it was our higher self because she had us then write a letter to a future. She had us write a letter to ourself. It says, "Dear me from future me." She wanted us to be in a space of where we would be in a year from now, from where we were at that retreat doing that meditation. But what really happened is, I think she tapped us into our higher self. What is our higher self? In my opinion, our higher self is God within us because God is within us and we are tapping into his wisdom, our higher self. We are all connected. And I read this letter. She mailed it. It hasn't been quite a year, but I received this a couple days ago and I read it. And I literally was like, I wrote this? Somebody didn't tell me what to write. I wrote this because the wisdom in my letter just seems a little beyond me of who I know that I am, even still. I mean, I know I've come a long way in this past almost year, but this was had to be my higher self or God talking to me. I'm going to read you the letter just because I feel like it is very it kind of kicks off what I'm doing with this podcast, how I'm choosing to show up in this world in a more public way, and a little sidebar to that. I never thought I would do a podcast. It was not something on my radar. It wasn't something I had dreamed of doing. I had zero intentions of doing a podcast. I was in a class with Felicity Davies called Frequency, and she was telling us about, different things that we could do to build our business. And one of the things was a podcast. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like I had zero interest in doing a podcast. And then literally within the week, I had the idea for this podcast because my whole intention is to not to teach people how to communicate with animals, but to teach you what it is and to open up your mind to it and to just get more people to start to understand that this is actually real, in whatever timeline that needs to look like. So I'm planting the seeds and I'm wanting to educate others that this is real, and that it's a beautiful world to be in. So here I am doing a podcast and I'm going to read to you the letter to me from future me. This was almost a year ago, July 2024. Hopefully I can get through it without crying because it is actually deeply moving. Brave, bold, beautiful soul, you are a treasure. Didn't you see? You've been her all along. The path may have been cloudy, but you were always on the right path. No need to doubt, no need to fear, no need to worry. You've been here all along. We just had to unearth you a bit from the soil, an excavation process to pull the gem that is you out from the depths of the earth. Then to clean and polish you up a bit so your true essence can shine bright for the world to see. No need to fear the future. No need to worry if you're on the right path. You are. You are doing it right now. In this moment, you are here. You just need to trust and let go and be. Be who you were always meant to be. The time underground was needed for you to grow and bloom, and now you are ready. Ready to meet the world and stand firm in who you are and shine. Shine bright, shine big, shine infinitely. Your horses know the way. They've been here supporting you all along. You are loved and you are fully supported. You are a jewel. Don't dismiss who you are. Own it. Own yourself and own your purpose. You are needed at this time. Part of the wait was that things had to happen to prepare not only you, but the world for this unfolding. And your time is near. Your time is now. Embrace it wholeheartedly and know who you are and why you had to wait till now to meet the world. The pain will pass. It's part of the growth you needed to undergo to get to where you are now. Glow, shine, breathe, be. Your energy is contagious. Your energy is needed. Your energy is bright. Use it. Namaste. I am speechless because I can't believe those are my own words. Nobody told us what to write. And I'm sharing this with you now because maybe you can also resonate with those words and maybe you needed to hear that message as well. And I'm here to share it and to invite you to my magical horse, the community. There's so much more in store. We've just barely scratched the surface. I mean, I've started this podcast. That was my first steps, to help build this community, to help get the word out there. I have so many beautiful intentions for this community that I want to grow. My magical horse, it's going to be a hub of creativity, of art, of storytelling, of education about animal communication, through my podcasts and through other offerings that I have in store in the works. Celebrating and discovering more ways to enjoy a magical connection with our horses. That is what I'm here for. And if you want to hear the full story about how Ugo actually led me to the name, My Magical Horse, and how he led me to starting the Patreon page and how he led me to understanding that this is going to be a creative hub and that I need to start diving into my art and sharing the stories, then you need to go listen to my podcast interview with Shaylee Evans. I believe that was episode number 3. of My Magical Horse, the podcast. And I actually share some words from Ugo that she shared with me during a session that she and I had together with him. So please don't miss that episode. It's just amazing, and it is the grassroots of where this is starting. And kind of like how Elements of Connection, they weren't exactly sure what it was going to be, but I knew I just had to be there. That's where we're at in the stage of My Magical Horse. I don't know exactly what's going to be. I know I have a lot of ideas, and I really hope if you feel called, if this resonates with you, if you feel joy from any of the things that I'm saying, to please join us. You can join as a free member to start, and then just kind of follow and see if you feel called to later joining as a Earth Angels. Um, and the reason for Earth Angels, honestly, is because when I thought I was going to lose Ugo, and I kept telling him he was my angel, and then I'd be like, Earth Angel, you're still my Earth Angel. I said, I'm not ready for him to leave me. But that said, I know at some point I will have to let him go. And part of this journey is for me to learn how to hear my own intuition and how to look inside myself so that I am not constantly going to outside sources as I've been my whole life, wanting to learn from everybody else. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But also at some point we need to turn inwards and we need to hear our own wisdom and tap into our own intuition and feel what needs to happen and not have somebody else telling us what to do. And that has been my healing journey in a nutshell, really. So what else do I want to share with you? I think I've said most everything that I wanted to share. Oh, if you go on to My Magical Horse, the Patreon, I want you to check out, you can go it's kind of like a blog when you get in, and you can scroll down, you can see everything. But at the top there is a collections tab, and I may do a video to explain to people how to navigate the site. But if you go to the collections tab, it'll break it down into topics. So you can find a collections tab that will have the podcast, so you could just access the podcast if you want to access it through there. There's another tab for the video version of the podcast, which is an exclusive perk for Earth Angels, and future tiers that I may create will have access to the video versions of these podcasts. Everybody else just has access to the audio. But if you are a My Magical Earth Angels member or a future tier member, you will have access to the videos, and there's a tab for that there. I do some giveaways and gifts. I have a tab for gold and silver foil note cards. I have a tab for other My Magical Horse merch. I'm going to create some more fun things, and I've been giving away some of those things with prizes and stuff. And we do have a Facebook group if you join, and usually I'll do the contests in the Facebook group. Not all of them, but some of them. And I actually am just inviting you to specifically look for these two collections. And one is called My Magical Muses. And that is where I am sharing insights directly from my horses. So animal communication type messages that I get from my horses. If I choose to make a post about that, it will be in the My Magical Muses collection. And also there is another collection called Your Magical Horse. And that is where I am sharing my own insights, not only as a horse trainer or as on Instagram, I call myself an equine energy sculptor. I like that better than trainer. My insights as someone who works with horses and also who believes in animal communication, and tries to integrate that into how I work with horses and how I train horses and how I teach my students. That will be in the Your Magical Horse collections tab. So that would be a great place for you to start. There's also a My Magical Horse Origins tab if you want to read the story of how I came up with My Magical Horse, the name itself. Yeah, so I think that that's everything that I wanted to share today. I did want to give a huge shout out of gratitude to my mentors. I have really so many beautiful mentors that I am so blessed to have found and who have really helped guide me to where I am today. And I think the beautiful thing is it's not just one person. There is this beautiful group of people who've each had their own role in helping me get to the place I am today. Yeah, so I just wanted to give them a shout out, and no particular order, but Celeste Lazarus, she has a podcast episode with me, and we talk about how we met, her role in my life. She has been a huge, huge catalyst per helping me see what is possible and helping me believe in the magic of all of this. Amber Leidick and Shaylee Evans, who truly, truly, that first year, year and a half after Elements of Connection, they were like my lifeline. I mean, they came up with so many fun programs to help me learn about myself and to delve into the shadows and to learn how to somatically release trauma. And I'm sure they have no idea how important their role was in my life, but they kept me afloat, especially that first year. And I remember after the first year, like there was like a little bit of a lull where maybe they were taking vacation or something, and I was really missing them. I was just like, like I need to stay connected to them. They are really important um, to my energy and getting me where I am here. And I will forever be grateful for their role. And Shaylee, specifically with the messages that she has been able to share with me from my horses that have been pivotal and profound. And if you ever have an opportunity to work with Shaylee or any of the other communicators that I bring onto my podcast, please do. They're so incredible. One thing I do talk about in my interview with Felicity, actually, that where she interviewed me on her podcast, but it was that if you think about talking to your friends, you don't always talk to your friends about the same thing. Like you may talk to one friend about this, that might not be something that you talk to this other person about. So, in my mind, working with more than one animal communicator is also a beautiful thing because they're going to connect with your horse with a different energy, and your horse may be willing to tell them different things than they were able to tell a different communicator, or their knowledge set may be different. They may be able to tell that communicator something that the other communicator might not have understood, and this is layers deep. So don't limit yourself to one communicator. I mean, like I said before, listen to these interviews and find the communicators that resonate with you, and then reach out to them and see if you can get on their waiting list, or if you maybe you'll luck out and you won't have to wait. That would be beautiful. So Shaylee, thank you, and Amber, thank you for that piece in my healing journey. And I'm still a part of their tea house, which I adore, being able to reach out and connect with them anytime there. Felicity Davies, she came onto my radar, I think probably before I went to Elements of Connection. And then maybe my frequency, the name of one of her classes, was such that I just started following her at a particular time of my life really closely. I was reading everything she was posting. And then at that time, I dove into a 4-month animal communication class with her, which ended up being an animal communication and energy healing class, which we talk about in the episode where she interviews me on her Equestrian Perspective podcast, but was such a beautiful part of my healing. She was such a beautiful part of my healing journey as well. And she was my first interview on My Magical Horse, the podcast. The funny thing about that is I was really nervous. And the funny thing about me being really nervous is I went to school for broadcasting, and I, again, had zero intentions of creating a podcast. I wasn't using my broadcasting degree. I had used it in the past to an extent, but I had become a horse trainer. I mean, what was I going to use my broadcasting degree for? Again, putting a podcast out was just not on my radar. Even after Felicity mentioned it, it was still like, nah, that's for other people, not me. And now here I am, and I'm grateful for that history and that background in broadcasting, because it actually probably gave me the confidence to dive into this. Whereas if I had not had that background, I don't think I'm the kind of person that I just don't think I would have done it. So thank you, Felicity, for being my first guest. Thank you for giving me the idea to do a podcast. Thank you, God, for giving me the idea for this podcast because that came in, like I said, within a week of Felicity telling us, oh, you guys could do a podcast. And here we are, My Magical Horse, the podcast, episode number 8. Thank you, Felicity. I want to thank Dee Clark. She is my dear therapist that I've been seeing for years, actually, before I even went to Elements of Connection. She knows how long it has taken for me to get to this point and how hard it was for me to get to this point. Thank you for everything, Dee. Tracy Rainwaters, I worked with you off and on. I did do your Alchemy of the Soul, which was lovely. What Tracy offered me that I will forever be grateful for is, well, she actually did a shamanic healing on me, which way back, like was right after things started to open up after COVID had closed everything down. But I don't dismiss how much that has also played a role in my ability to be on this path and be on this healing journey. So thank you, Tracy. But Tracy, I had offered my dog, Vino, who had passed. She actually did a introduction to animal communication class a long time ago. It was on Zoom. It was before I didn't even want to be on, I didn't want to do anything on Zoom. I'm like, ugh, it's on Zoom. Oh, I guess I'll do it. But I didn't like the fact that people would see my face on Zoom. Anyways, I did that class and had offered my dog if she was looking for people that would volunteer their animals to be used in the class. And I don't know, naively thought maybe he would get to be in the class that I was in, but she used him for a different class. But as a thank you, she did do a session with him, which to this day is one of my most treasured. The words that she shared with me that my Conning Corso had shared with her shortly after he passed, those words are like gems in my heart. They're so beautiful and they have had such an impact on my life's path and my journey and my confidence in where I'm going with all of this. So thank you, Tracy. And if you want to hear more about that particular conversation that she had with him, I do share some of the actual conversation. I think it was in episode 2 of My Magical Horse, the podcast. So Felicity was episode 1, Tracy episode 2, Shaylee episode 3, Amber was episode 4. Celeste was episode 5. And then other mentors who have not been on my podcast yet. Rochelle Stanley. Thanks to Amber, I have worked with Rochelle a handful of times, and she has been really a beautiful and just a beautiful part of my healing journey as well, and giving me the confidence to keep going. Thank you, Rochelle. The reason actually that Amber referred me to her was because I was having some immense physical pain, and I was having a hard time releasing that physical pain, even with all the work I've been doing. So Amber had mentioned Rochelle, and Rochelle has helped me immensely on that part of my journey. So thank you, Rochelle. I also wanted to thank my one of my very, very first mentors when I started to dive into self-help work, if you want to call it that. She was my introduction into this world. And I had found her on Facebook, actually. She had a thing called the Recreating You game. And her name is Zen Cryer DeBrook. And through that Recreating You game, I actually won from being active and participating at the level that I did. I actually won the opportunity to be in a mastermind with her. And that was an incredible experience. I'd never done anything like that. Later went on to do a program she had called the Stress to Happiness Makeover. And anyways, Zen has played a huge, huge pivotal role in teaching me how to use what she calls the internal guidance system. We all have an internal guidance system, and she teaches you how to feel the sensations in your body to know if what you're thinking about a situation is true or not true about which direction you should go. Like your thoughts could actually be misleading you, I guess is kind of the premises of her work. Anyway, I worked with Zen, did one-on-ones with her for quite a while, and she was an incredible start to my journey. And I love you, Zen. Thank you for everything that you've done for me. And another mentor that I do want to mention, who I've worked with more recently, is Farah Sadiq. Farah has an amazing Instagram page where she posts about the current astrology and basically, I think, helps coach a way to look at it in a positive light. Anyway, Farah is a Reiki master, and I got to do a session with her, and that led to me attending a retreat. It was called the Flight of the Phoenix Aya at Mount Shasta. And it was an incredible experience on my healing journey. Um, Something I definitely wanted to mention here. And I actually have a community of sisters through the Flight of the Phoenix retreat, as well as a group that she has called the Magnetic Muse. And it's been a really amazing experience to get to know some women who actually aren't in the horse world. I think that's been pretty pivotal for me, just to open up my experience beyond just horses. But anyway, Farah has been really an incredible voice of wisdom in the last year or so that I've been following her. So I wanted to make mention of her role in my journey as well. Thank you, Farah. And currently, I'm working with Mariana at Alchemy Queen. And the beautiful thing about this is I met Mariana at Elements of Connection, and I very specifically remember her and my first words. And she came down from Canada, and I don't think she didn't even have her Alchemy Queen business at the time. And I had zero idea that I would end up working with her at some point, but she has been just a beautiful next step for me in my own healing journey and my own development of my own intuition and trusting myself and being able to communicate with my animals. And she will be the next guest on my podcast. So thank you. Thank you to all my mentors. And I really just wanted to give you all some love for your role in this healing adventure journey that I'm on. And then thank you to you, my listeners, truly. Thank you to those of you who have signed up for my magical horse on the Patreon, whether you be a free member at the moment, but those of you who have taken that leap and joined as an Earth Angels, thank you. Like, truly thank you. I have so many ideas and so many places this is going to go. So those of you who have jumped on board to support me as an Earth Angels, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so from the depths of my heart for being here. And I promise there's so much more magical goodness to come. And I am so happy that you resonate with this and are on this journey with me. So with that, I'm going to say namaste, my friends. And I am actually going to do a post about namaste and what that means, because there's a very specific reason that I chose to end all of my posts and my podcast with this word and sentiment. And also, interestingly, that Ugo said it to me. I didn't realize that till I was looking through my notes. So namaste, my friends, and thank you all for being here. And until next time, I love you. Help us spread the word by giving us a rating, liking, and sharing this podcast. And if you'd like to join us beyond the podcast, we'd love to see you at My Magical Horse. Go to www.patreon.com/mymagicalhorse. We'll see you there. Until next time, namaste, friends.